and he has a whole lot of other design thinking companies in other countries. Tell us about some of those countries. I know South Africa is one of them. Tell us about other countries that run design thinking academies.
So we are, well, we're in like 23 countries, so that's kind of a big list. But we're basically on all continents.
How good I feel.
Singapore to
making love to the deep sound of soulful house music.
and well, anywhere. Actually,
An emotional journey as the rhythm and beat becomes
it
alive.
sounds like a really big thing, and sometimes it does feel like that. But we are very different than traditional organizations. I don't know if anyone knows the author Charles Ledbeater, but he had this wonderful book years ago.
Like a blazing fire on burns, I admire the intense desire to feel deeper and deeper and oh, so deep.
Restaurant model, whereas and one is kind of
An evolution of
scalable,
soul,
the other one is spreadable.
sensuous sound,
We're sort of
an underground music phenomenon derived from warehouse 90s, reminiscent from the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
based on trust.
House music is a feeling.
Being local,
House music
local
is
understanding,
a
but also
feeling.
being local. So that's also the cliche of
Oh, hypnotized by the beat,
so we're very
you
different.
and I.
So it sounds like a big corporate, but actually we're also very small, and I love that.
Brilliant. And I got to experience Anne last year, and I got to experience the conference. So hello, Estelle. Hello, Mark. Hi. Hi, Estelle. Estelle has joined the conversation. So I got to experience Anne's Design Thinking Academy conference in Amsterdam last year. It was at the, please tell us more about it and tell us what you're going to do for this year.
Yeah, so that's actually very interesting, and I could very much relate to our previous speaker about having a conference, a gathering of people in a time where that is actually not allowed. So we are organizing our conference in October. As you know, our main theme is always empathy. Empathy is so important, and it's such a complex topic. It sounds, if we hear a lot of people talk about it, and it sounds quite easy. Like, oh yeah, you just have to walk in the shoes of someone else, or look through the eyes of someone else, or kind of feel what other people feel. But actually, if you start digging deep into it, it's very difficult, and it actually starts within yourself. So it becomes a very interesting topic you can look at from different angles. The angle we wanted to kind of talk about was actually it was looking at reality, and reality being your reality because you are from a different context, a different world, a different background, a different, et cetera, et cetera. Your reality is different than my reality. And this means that sometimes we don't understand each other, but there's no right or wrong. It's just that you see the world different because you have learned a different language. You have, it's your story, the way you brought up. This is one-on-one, but also culture. And if you are a company that works around the world, you will have kind of those kind of frictions. And so looking at that as a topic of how can you embrace that diversity of also truth, the diversity of understanding what reality is, and how can you listen to each other without judging? How can you listen to each other? And some examples that people are, they might have a totally different opinion. For instance, if you are either pro-Trump or against Trump, or you are pro-Brexit or against Brexit, people are so divided. But what if you could kind of take the angle of there must be a story? What if you can actually look at their reality and accept that their reality is also reality? So we're kind of trying to kind of not fix those things, but make people feel these tensions. And where are they? Where are those tensions? And and why are you so afraid to kind of start understanding other people's opinions? And so we're really, so what's going to happen now, except because, like we just said, it's in October, but reality is kind of slowly sinking in that actually we're not going to be able to do a traditional conference. Now, we are an experimental conference anyway. So our plan now is to say, to take this opportunity and to do something really amazing and remarkable, different, that we are also going to take with us. So I want to create a conference experience, not just to survive this year. I want to create something that's going to last, that's going to, because this is like, you know, it's a wave where we're catching, and there's so many of these opportunities, you know, besides all the terrible things that are happening, but it's like, you could know, actually, because all the terrible things that are happening, I feel obliged, I would be so ashamed not to make use of this moment to build something better. So, or also our conference, can we still next year have people fly in from all over the world to Amsterdam? Is that really something that we should be doing? Or maybe we should look at it differently. We'd say, what if we spend like a week or maybe 2 weeks giving people content, like pre-recorded content, talks, and then having live moments in different time zones. So we have like local gatherings, and we have amazing content, and we give people opportunities to have, like we are doing now, Q&As with the keynote speakers at different times, so addressing different time zones. So we're looking at that creatively. For us, it's,
love it.
Yeah, it's a really interesting moment. But again, it's still, we're in this discovery stage, like, oh, what's happening? Where is this going? Oh, is this good? I don't know. I'm not really sure. So we're still there, like, because so every day we're like talking, like maybe, but it's a creative space. So
yeah, exactly.
Right. So
exactly. Yeah. No, but I'm excited to know that you are thinking about it, because I don't think other people should be deprived of what I experienced last year. That all of those different angles of looking at empathy, to a point, guys, where we looked at computing empathy.
yeah.
Yeah. Like machines, AI, artificial intelligence, and what it's learning about empathy. And in the future, machines might just be more empathetic than humans. That's a researcher who shared with us last year. So at least these virtual platforms have demonetized, democratized, and have allowed all of us to be a part of this amazing experiences that have happened in different parts of the world. And this morning, we bring unto you, to your home, to your house, to share with you about a brave new world that requires a brave new leadership. Over to you, and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's really interesting. It's not just that you bring me to the people, but I bring you into my home, which is something very special. It's very, it's also, it's almost a very personal experience. You probably have experienced the same thing, that we kind of, if we are in these Zoom meetups, all of a sudden we're in video conferencing. It is fascinating to see the different backgrounds and where people are. I can relate to one of the other speakers saying, and I think all the speakers at this conference will kind of experience the same thing, that I miss the human connection. But it's at the same time, you're in my home, and it's both personal, but it's also very distant. So I'm really missing that connection. So a brave new world needs a new kind of leadership. I want to address a few things now, and I'm also going to set my clock, because I also want to take time to maybe have a discussion and answer some questions. I want to address the topic of leadership, which is really important, and specifically creative leadership, which is, I think, something that we all kind of need to start thinking about. What we need to do in order to have a creative space for other people to be creative. What we need to do to create a safe space for either your team, for your company, for the people you work with to be creative. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. First, I do kind of I want to tell some personal stories as well, because I also feel that it's important to kind of show that whatever, you know, I'm not saying that you think I am kind of superhuman being, because I'm not, but we do get presented in a certain way that you know, we're put on a stage and we're presented as being sort of these amazing, successful people, and we're doing all these great things, and we, you know, I run this international company, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the most important lessons that I've learned in my life is that we actually don't know a lot. We don't actually, I don't know anything really. I've experiences, I've read amazing books, I've tried things, I failed, and I learned to cope with new things. I'm a creative person, but I always start with I don't know, and I think that's so important, because we don't know. The world is too complex. The world is sometimes even chaotic. The idea that we know how to do things, how to kind of change systems, how to create new systems, how to do that, I think that's an illusion. I think what we're looking for is what we in design thinking call failing forward, or prototyping, or trying a mindset where we kind of try things and are not afraid to fail, because we come from most of us come from an environment where failure is frowned upon, logically, because, you know, we don't want to fail because that will cost us money or something. Some people will be harmed in the process. But we need to create a space where we can actually try out new things, because if we can't fail, we can never learn to do anything new. So this mindset of not knowing, it's like starting with I don't know, I think that is liberating, because in the space of not knowing, you know, in the space of not knowing how to do things, and not claiming to be the expert or claiming to know everything is possible. And I was just reminded by a friend of mine about you know, a simple logic that, for instance, scientists that we depend upon right now at this moment, and we really do have to, because they know what's going on, and I trust the medical scientists and the people who are really good at numbers. I trust them. So we have to listen to them. But these are not the people that can imagine a new future. These are not the people that will create these new scenarios. They will tell us what's happening now, and they will give us sort of guidance on a practical level, and it's all great. But we need creative people. We need designers. We need creatives. We need imagineers. We need dreamers. We need people who can step back and think about what is the future that we want, because the future is not here. There is no future. There is no future. It's not here. We are creating it. You can create this future. By everything you do, you create the future. So starting with I don't know, which sounds maybe silly, but starting with I don't know gives space for all opportunities, makes everything possible. Stepping back, and I relate very much to Timothy, the first speaker. You know, he talks about this imagining. He also talks about stress. So the first speaker talked about, you know, this stressful moment. Well, I have two things to say about stress, because we can be stressed right now. Obviously, some of you are stressed because, you know, things are changing. But innovation, change always causes stress. Now, use it as your energy. If you are, if you're in theater, for instance, just as an example, if you are in theater, before you go on stage, you have stress. You have to have stress. This is where all your senses open up. So this is a moment in time where you are hyper aware if all is right. So of course, maybe you go through a period where you don't, you know, you're confused, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what's going on, but accept that, accept it, take a step back and observe. The world, nature is telling us something. Step back and observe, listen. So I want to, I want to invite you to read a book called Anti-Fragile. It's from the same author who wrote Black Swans and Fooled by Randomness. But this concept of anti-fragile, I just want to share that with you because it inspired me. In this moment in time, if you are able to say, all right, you know, for at least stop for a bit, listen and observe and feel, you will recognize patterns. You need to recognize patterns. Things are changing. There are new patterns. But think about this. What are the things that are falling apart at the moment? Now, consider this crisis to be, you know, a hurricane or an earthquake. So what is falling apart? Which houses are kind of collapsing during this earthquake? We don't want to rebuild the same houses afterwards. What are the houses that are, you know, still standing? What actually survives this earthquake? Those are good. They're good houses. They're great. We might, you know, don't tear them apart. I mean, don't keep them. But there's something else. And this is kind of relates to this idea of anti-fragile. Anti-fragile meaning things that grow stronger under stress. Things that grow stronger during a crisis like this. What are the things that are going stronger? And this can be things like inside of you, the feelings that you have, like I should have, you know, I always should have done this. I really wanted to do, you know, these activities, or wanted to build this kind of company, or wanted to create a company with this kind of culture, or I wanted to do this I wanted to write a book, I wanted to you know, on all kinds of different levels. There are things inside of you that grow stronger. Listen to that. The other thing is around you, which connections, which are, you know, in your network, who are the people that all of a sudden, you know, are there for you, or you know, that really help you. You might discover new skills in the people that you work with, et cetera, et cetera. What is growing stronger? That is what you should be building on. That is the thing that you kind of, those are signals. Those are the things that you can use to create a new future. So this is about leadership. It is, and leadership meaning not a hierarchy, you don't have to be the CEO to be a leader. We can all be leaders. We can be leaders in our communities. We can be leaders for our teams, for our business, for ourselves. But creative leadership does start within yourself. It starts with understanding who are you, where are you from, because you have to create a space for people to be creative, to be vulnerable, to be able to make mistakes, to try new things. And it means that you have to be the example. It means that you have to be open. If you're not open, no one gets in. If you're not vulnerable, no one will be vulnerable. So it's a very different way of looking at leadership. Now, I come from a country, the Netherlands, where we don't have a very strong hierarchy anyway. I know there's, in different cultures, different companies, there are, you know, you might have a very strong hierarchy that when the boss tells you to go left, you all go left. And when the boss tells you to go right, you all go right. All right, so that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about leadership. I'm talking about a new world where maybe you are a leader, but you're not in charge. How then do you create movement? How do you create movement when you work for a group of people that are looking at you to lead them, but they are not, you know, they won't just do what you tell them to do. You have to inspire them. So how do you do that? It starts within yourself. It started with understanding who you are, where you're from. So if I can give you an advice on developing your leadership skills, it's a very simple advice. At least it sounds very simple, but if you start digging into it, it is actually really difficult to do. So, you know, write down your story for yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? Who are your parents? What are the things that you experienced that shaped you? Because those things have shaped you, and they will, you know, turn you into, you know, they've turned you into the person that you are right now, meaning that If you are aware of that, you also know why you do certain things and why you act in a certain way. You can tell that story, you can share that story, at least you can build empathy for yourself, and you have to before you can actually build empathy for others. Now, if you write that story, you know, don't be too hasty. Do take the time for it. And if you are able to share it with others, share it with others. But it's basically for yourself. Now, one of the things that you know, for me, it has been very important, especially the last few years, is that, so for instance, I come from a family where my mother is an artist and my father is more of the scientist. So my mother is someone who would feel things, that she would say like, oh yeah, I feel an energy here. And my father would be someone who would say, well, if you can't measure it, it's not true. And I have both of these voices in my head. They're both here. They're like, so which is actually an interesting moment, where it's like, they're fighting here. Like, no, that's not true. You can't measure it. And it's like, yeah, but I feel it. It's probably true. Now, both of these things are, you know, they are true, but it's important for me to know where they come from. It's important for me as a leader to know who I am, where I'm from. So I have dyslexia, something that is also has shaped me, because that's because I hated school because of it, because I never fitted in. And I didn't want school to know I have dyslexia, because, you know, I didn't want to be special. I didn't want to have special attention. So I never wanted school to know. So they didn't know. So they thought that I was either stupid or lazy or really arrogant, or I don't know, they had all kinds of labels for me. But I actually was really insecure, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And so especially as a teenager, I would just, you know, build a wall. And then it turned me into a school dropout. So I never finished any school. But I love learning. I love reading new books. I love to learn new things. But it's because of that, because of my being a school dropout and never being able to fit in, never really knowing what I wanted to do. So I've done theater, I've done music, I've been a photographer, I've done many things. Actually, not fitting in now is my superpower. So, and I understand that, and I because I know where it came from, and I know what created me, what shaped me. I can share that story, and that also both helps other people because they also start realizing, oh, it's actually okay not to fit in. Because I mean, who really fits in 100%? I mean, I think we're all kind of, we all have layers, right? We all have so many different layers. So not fitting in is actually an amazing superpower. Okay, so first thing, you know, stand back, listen, understand patterns. Second, listen to yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? Spend this time, do that. This is the moment. You know, this is the moment. You're not kind of busy with all these tasks and all that stuff that people are telling you to do. Spend time also listening and observing to yourself and to the world around you, because it's talking to you. Understand emerging patterns, because leadership is going to be more a role as a sort of, we would describe it as a navigator. A leader needs to be a navigator, and a navigator who can navigate into chaos, because it is a chaotic world. It is a very complex world, and you can't analyze it. You cannot analyze this complexity. You will need to kind of create intervention for it. And you need to be a navigator. Now, we have amazing, huge intervention at the moment, which will, in my mind, speed things up. It's not, so you might feel that, you know, everything is brought to a stop. Everything is, you know, right now, everything kind of crashed and stopped. Like a lot of my business at the moment, because we teach and we bring people together, and I organize conferences, everything stopped. But that's not what happened. It didn't stop, it's speeded up. All the things that we needed to be doing is going like a train. It's a really fast train we're in at the moment. But you have to kind of see it, you have to observe it, like where is that wave? What is that wave? Can I catch it? ride the wave, understand, see these patterns that they emerge, but you have to observe and listen. You have to observe and listen. Now, and we talked a little bit about this. Something else is, like, we talked about artificial intelligence, and quantum computing is a topic I am really interested in as well. This crisis is not going to be the last crisis. This might be a very important crisis that we are obliged to use this crisis to make a better world. If we're not, it'd be so stupid of us as a human race not to say, like, wait a minute, remember that you know, that we needed to change our ways of life. We needed to kind of create a better environment. I mean, you know, there's global warming. You know, this is like the biggest inspiration for us as human beings to say we can change things dramatically, rapidly. I live very near Schiphol Airport, huge airport. There are no planes in the sky. I know it's costing jobs, but do we want that back? Monday morning, there's no traffic jam in my country. Do we want that back? Are you crazy? I mean, people who've been in traffic jams every single day of their, you know, in the working week, every day, every Monday, Tuesday, you know, they're working from home now. They can, it's possible. We don't need those traffic jams. Those are stupid. Those are silly things we just accept as normal. They are not normal, they're weird. So we can see new patterns emerge. We have to kind of strengthen those patterns that we want to keep. We need to keep that change that we see. Yes, and we need to change things as well that are happening that are not good. You know, the politics, trying to kind of separate people. I mean, there's so many things that are not good, but there are good things happening. In my neighborhood, people taking care of each other, looking at, you know, elderly people. All of a sudden, people are taking care of each other, you know, if they're okay and if they can do, you know, there's an elderly woman down the road here. You know, we're looking at her. Can she do shopping? Is it okay? So we would need to keep those things. Okay. Something, I talked about Anti-Fragile, the book Anti-Fragile. I also want to talk about synchronicity. There's a book called Synchronicity. Buy it, read it. There's a book called Quantum Leadership. Buy it, read it. I'll make sure that the links will be there. But synchronicity is, I think, for me, it's been an important concept. We are part of the same world, as we've noticed. We are part of the same energy. We are connected. Now, here's my mother saying, yeah, I felt, of course, we're all part of the same, you know, world. And I feel, so my mother would say, a friend would call with an urgent message. And then my mother would tell me, oh, I was thinking of this person like for a day, and now she calls. See, there's a connection. My father would say, that's total nonsense. I mean, that's just superstition. That's on nonsense. Now, all right. Now there's quantum computing. No, actually, I mean quantum mechanics, quantum theory. It is actually proven that there is something that connects particles. There is some kind of connection, energy field that we cannot see, but it's there. It can be there. You know, we can have particles change. I'm not a scientist. I'm not even going to try to explain it because I'm going to sound very stupid. But there's proof. So my father now, you know, in my head would say, actually there is some kind of, and traditional Eastern philosophy, in most religions actually, but specifically the Eastern philosophies will, you know, yes, there is an energy field, there is energy that connects us. Duh, we've been saying that for centuries. Okay, so synchronicity is about that. It's about, again, about this stepping back and understanding patterns, but also about listening to your feeling, because you are part of something that if you feel that you know, something's going on, if you feel there's energy somewhere, there is a direction that you need to go, follow that. trust that feeling, listen to that feeling. It's the voice inside of you that, you know, you did often, and we all have that somewhere, that feeling or the voice inside of us. That voice, you listen to that voice. So there's a book, Synchronicity, that kind of talks about it, and the book Quantum Leadership talks about being a leader, both listening to yourself and to your feeling, but also being a leader for both your company, for yourself, for your team, for your company, and for the communities that the people that you work for are coming from. So you're a leader for all those things. Now those are leadership theories. I think it's important for you to know, because that's something that we're going to, besides, you know, creative leadership, quantum leadership. Robert Greenleaf called it servant leadership. It's a very old concept, but it's going to kind of be really important in the next coming years. We need these leaders. We need leaders who are not managers, but can inspire us and are open and vulnerable and genuine and authentic, and can start movements. And you can only do that when you start with you. Every change starts with you, within yourself. So then, and I'm watching my clock. I want to also, so if you're listening to this, please use the Q&A if you have any question, or you can also say, Arne, stop rambling and tell me something about this thing. Please do so, okay? Because I love this, like most of the speakers here will say, I want to see your face, I want to kind of hear your voice. It's kind of weird kind of just talking to this computer without hearing you. Anyway, I wanted to address a topic I just kind of briefly introduced. It's this, the crisis that we are in now is not going to be the last crisis. I've learned as an entrepreneur, and I've been an entrepreneur most of my life, that there are two moments that there should be alarm bells inside of your head, and you should be prepared for that. Two really important moments. One, when you're very successful. And the second is when you're not, when there's a crisis and everything is going really badly. Those are the two moments that you need to change. Now, and oddly enough, those are the two moments that we don't change. So one is when you're really successful, you think you invented it, you think you know the trick. You think that what you've done is unique, it's amazing, it's going really well, and you're really busy. You're working really hard, and you have all these tasks and all that stuff, and you're growing, you're scaling, and whatever. This is where you're fooling yourself. This is the moment where you have to think about, okay, wait. What do we need? We need to change. This is a moment where you need to either create something new or really question yourself, at least question yourself. But usually we don't, because we start believing in our own bullshit. Pardon my French. The other thing is in obviously the crisis, when things are going really bad. This is where you want to kind of try to keep the things that you've been building. This is where you start like, oh, you know, I want to keep what I've had, and you try to survive. Again, you know, you have to start listening. These are the moments you can prepare for. This crisis should teach you about the next crisis. This crisis should be able to, you know, you use this crisis to create things that you can keep with you, not to survive this crisis. No, this is a creative space. And every change, everything that is about change and innovation is painful. It has to be, because this is where all your senses go open. This is the creative moment. There's a question. Wait. Okay. So Marius Strudom, I'm not sure if I pronounced your name right.
Marius, yeah.
I would like to kind of answer your question about being authentic. So I think you cannot, I think the beauty of being authentic means you cannot fake it. And, then, because then you become like, that's the worst thing, that, you pretend to be authentic. You cannot be an authentic brand, for instance, just because you say you are. That's not what you are. And just because you want to be. Authentic means you are extremely vulnerable. And in order to be vulnerable, you have to open up. In order to actually be able to open up, you have to be, so actually the interesting paradox is, if you enable to be really vulnerable, you have to be really strong. You have to be able to be open enough to say, okay, this is who I am. This is all I am. This is all I have. But you know that those are the people that, you connect to. So being authentic means that people can connect to you because you open, so they can come in. Michael Lee is asking, I strongly believe that COVID is, as some people believe, a natural reaction to our overwhelming lack of restraint. Do you believe that humans as a whole can possibly overcome the old system? You and we are not like the masses. How do we fight for these good changes to stay? So Michael, that's something that has been occupying at least my mind for a long time. How can we? I don't know. But I do know that change starts with one person. It changes with, so change does not happen by waiting for other people to change, because that just never happens. Change happens within yourself. That's where the movement starts. And then your ability to create that movement within others. But it starts within you. It starts within you. It starts within you saying, I believe in something and I need to do this. And by expressing that and by having other people connect to you and them expressing, et cetera, et cetera. That's the only thing I know. That's how a movement starts. A movement starts with one person believing in something, but also letting go. So the paradox of, you believe in something, you share your thoughts with other people, but you let them shape it also. You don't start to try and manage it, the message, so having a strong belief in something and to believe that, again, going back to synchronicity, catch that wave. If you feel, so Michael, if you feel something needs to change, and you're saying like, we're not like the masses, I'm not really sure. I mean, we're not like are we not? I feel like I am just a really ordinary person. And my context might be very different, but I live on the same planet. I think there are many, many people who want, but the only thing we need to do is like, we have to kind of give people a voice somehow. And I don't know, but that's where we are in the creative space to find out. Patrick, how can you design the future? You are designing the future. How can you design the future? I mean, you're doing it all the time. You're doing it by all the decisions that you make. So if you want to decide, I'll give you an advice. And again, I'm no guru. I can't foresee the future, and I'm not smarter than you are. Seriously, I'm just going to tell you something that works for me, and I found very useful. Designing the future means you first have to imagine it. You imagine the future. Again, take your time. I mean, if you do, you can do it right now. You can close your eyes and think about what or where do I want to be in, say, 5 years' time. Visualize it. Make it, tangible in your mind. Where are you? What's the building? Who are the people? What I work with? What's the environment? How do they talk to each other? What does it look like? Is it light? What is the space? Etc. Make it as explicit as possible. Visualize that story, visualize that future, because what will happen is, if that's in your mind, you will make micro decisions throughout your life where you will recognize things that kind of steer you into that direction. Now, this sounds a bit vague, but truly, believe me, it helps. by visualizing it, imagine it. You're designing the future all the time, because there is no such thing as future, except that we're not aware of it. Every decision that you make shapes the future. Noella, thank you so much, Arne. I resonate with your views and would listen to you deliver a free speech anytime. Well, thank you very much about that. How did you overcome my dyslexia? How did I overcome dyslexia, or treat dyslexia? Well, you can't really treat dyslexia. It's my superpower. I'm not overcoming it. I have embraced it. You know, sometimes you feel like you're different than other people because you can't do something other people can do. No, it's actually the other way around. You can do something other people can't do. Dyslexia means that I had to think differently. It also helped me, you know, not fit in and I feel totally comfortable. So for instance, this moment in time, this chaos, not knowing where the things are going. For me, this is my comfort zone. This is where I'm happy. So the kind of, it sounds terrible because I know, you know, I'm worried about my parents. They're in their 80s and there's people dying. It's terrible. But all in all, you know, I'm not, that's what I'm worried about. But all the other stuff, for me, this is the comfort zone. This is where I'm happy. I love to be in a chaotic space, because when there's chaos, I can make connections. I can connect things that are not connected, and that's what design does. That's creativity. So I'm not overcoming it, I'm embracing it. So if you have some kind of dysfunction, if you have something that is different than others and you're worried about it, don't be, that's your superpower. Howard, question for Arne. How do you design the future? Where do we start? How do we start? What should be the approach? Well, again, I think I addressed it a little bit by saying you're doing it. You just be aware of that you're doing it. You are designing a future. So it means that you feel that you need to do something that is important. Do it. What can you do? Everything. So especially now, but if there's anything you can do, you know, be active. Go and do it. Try it. You know, prototype it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you learn. That's how you learn to ride a bicycle. If you want to ride a bicycle, you know, and I'm Dutch, that's why I'm talking about bicycles. If you want to ride a bicycle, you have to try, you have to fall down a couple of times. It's natural. So don't be afraid to go out there and show yourself and go. That's how you design a future. Because it starts with you. So that's what I think is most important. I'm not sure if that's answering your question, but we can talk about it later if you want to. Mickey, how do you self-regulate the leadership ego when things start working? How to keep the holistic vision focused on the empathic core goals? Well, yeah, so the ego is interesting. How do you self-regulate that? It's really difficult because you start to believe in your own bullshit. Have the right people around you. Create an environment where people can challenge you, where people can actually, and it's also about mental models. The mental model that, you know, I think somewhere it starts with school, teaching. It starts with maybe even how you are brought up, maybe, but it starts with creating an environment for yourself where you are going to be challenged all the time and accept those challenges. And it starts with a change. And so change, we're not talking about, this is not going to happen like next week or next month or next year. This is a slow change that's going to happen. The system that we're part of is extremely strong and it's going to defend itself. But the change is going to happen and it's going to go slow. And we are planting seeds. We've been planting seeds for years. This is just speeding things up. So I think that we will see a change happen, but think about the mental models that we need to change. Meaning, for instance, that so I just got the news a couple of days ago that Amsterdam is going to embrace what they call the donut economy. So meaning, I'm going to explain that theory for you, but for me it's really exciting. So if you're interested in new economics, I mean, really read up on the donut economy. But new economics, there are some theories, some philosophies there that I totally embrace, and that we've been embracing that as a company as well. First of all, nothing in nature grows forever. If it does, it's a disease. That is what tries to grow forever, but it kills the ecosystem in the end. That's not a good story. Why do we feel that companies are only healthy when they grow? So in new economics, we say, no, it's not. It is actually balance. A healthy company is in balance with its ecosystem. And the other thing is minimizing profit. The philosophy of minimizing profit sounds really silly because it's like, why? What isn't, shouldn't we maximize profit? Well, minimizing profit means first, understand what are you trying to do? What is the thing that you're trying to achieve? And then how much money do you actually need to achieve it? And that's sort of your goal money-wise. Otherwise, it's just maximizing profit. And it's, again, it's, and whatever you do makes no difference as long as it makes you money. Now, I know we are in a shareholder system that is no good, but it's also something that's going to be changing. And I think, I'm very hopeful it will. So I think that's an answer. Not really sure. Galaxy A7, a cool name, 2018. How do we instill empathy in other leaders who seem to be lacking in that area? I have two answers. One very cynical, and one very hopeful. The cynical part is I don't think you can. I think they need to kind of slowly fade out. We need, I don't know, but I think that they need to be replaced by other leaders. Their companies need to kind of either, collapse or whatever. So that's a cynical answer, right? But the hopeful answer is that they will be forced to change because the world is changing, because also the economies will change, the business will change. What we're seeing now, and what I will, and if I can predict anything for the future, we'll see more and more what you might call platform organizations that are smaller organizations. So where traditional organizations are huge and big, and when they're very successful, they again, they grow and grow and grow forever. Whereas new successful organizations that can have global impact don't have to be that big. They don't have to be that large. And I think, and give you an example, I was working for this big company, and they were used to buy their innovation. And so when there was a challenger, a small startup, a small company that would challenge them, they would just buy it because they wanted to have that. First of all, they want to kind of get rid of the competition. And this is how they kind of bought their innovation, which has been a very successful model for them. I remember at one point they wanted to buy this company, very successful small company. And the company said no, because they said, we don't want to work for a bigger corporate. We're happy. We want to stay small. We love what we're doing, but we understand why we're doing it. I don't want to be part of this political monster. That's why we left these companies. And they were in shock. They were like, oh, what? What do you mean? Like, but we're going to pay you a lot of money. But they said, no, we don't care about money. So I think there's a generation, again, this is the, maybe the naive answer. I think, at least the way I look at it, there's a generation of people that want to do things differently. And if they have a choice, and again, we're talking about people who have a choice, right? If they can have a choice between working for a company with a purpose that kind of makes sense to them, that is meaningful to them, or a company that has no purpose whatsoever, just about money, they will choose the first one. They will choose the company with a purpose. This is something that a lot of HR departments around the world are struggling with. How do you keep your talent? So I think that's part of that change, and I think so leaders will kind of need to address that. That you might want to create an environment inside of your company to keep talent in, to keep those people in, and also to become an authentic company that your customers actually can relate to. So I think somewhere in the mix is an answer. So Patrick, I'm curious about the story of the white owl behind Arne, if that's, rhinoceros, or, the owl, this one. Yeah, well, No, that's too personal. Sorry, I can't share that. Sorry, Patrick. Edith, how did your parents meet each other halfway in the artistic feeling space versus the scientific evidence-based space? How do these two coexist successfully without one looking down on the other? Accepting, I guess. And they're still together and they're in their 80s and they're lovely. So acceptance and having lots of arguments, and also sometimes just, it's a good question. I should ask them, how did they do it? In my head, they're both in my head. It's a bit confusing. So the scientist and the artist, but they enrich each other because they're different. I think because they're different, it actually works. I think if they would both have been scientists or both have been artists, I think it would have been worse. I think so. Good question. Thank you very, very much. Monsieur Polk. Based on the little experience this generation has with this type of global pandemic, is there any section of the world that can be said to have been better prepared for this situation? Point being, how do we gauge who has the better solution in such a fluid situation? I don't know. I don't know if there's been a section of the world better prepared for this. I think that we see different sort of different activities, we see different responses to the situation. Like New Zealand and Sweden, and here in the Netherlands, it's very different if you compare that to countries like Spain or the US. Or so I think that's really different. I think a lot of companies are, or sorry, a lot of countries or a lot of cultures will respond very differently to these situations. But I don't know which one would be better. I think it's all a learning experience, because the thing with these crises are, and you know, this one, like the previous one, like the next one, it catches you off guard always. So you will never be able to know exactly how to respond. But so if I would be saying, if I would have a choice, I think having sort of a mix between very scientific approach, having the scientist telling you, you know, no, you should do this, and there should be a lockdown, you should, et cetera, and also looking at it from a empathetic way. Something I'm missing in the numbers. I think we're focusing very much on numbers, but we're not looking at it through the eyes of, for instance, there's elderly people, which is, you know, such a sad, there's so many sad stories. Elderly people who are dying alone, or live maybe their last year in elderly in a care home, and they might have a year to live, and their kids can't go there to visit them. And then and we're doing this to protect them, I think, because they are the elderly and they are the vulnerable. So there's an interesting like dilemma there that I totally understand, that it's a big dilemma. But so I don't know if there's been the better approach. I think it needs to be seen. Another question: how do we balance form of leadership with the deep restoration both humanity and the planet need when the measure for corporate success is scale, right? Competition and profit. What options do we have for alternative templates for business competitive? Well, I just addressed this kind of new economics, like the donut economy. Look into that. I think new economics has an answer for it, and it has to do with balance. And we have to kind of get away from this shareholder system. We have to get away from this system where it's all about making money for just a few people. And the donut economy means you have to be in balance with the ecosystem, with your stakeholders, with the people that you work for. So the emergence of smaller platform companies that have impact, but are not there to grow in the traditional sense, but are there to kind of grow as an ecosystem. I think that is the future, and that's something that we're going to be seeing in, I think, in the next couple of years. Now, change is going to, it's going to feel slow. I don't think this is not, we're building something for a future. It's going to feel, at least for me, I would like to have it right now, but it's not. But if you look at it, so, and I'm going to end my talk there, again, to kind of reiterate what I started with. If you step back and you observe and you look at things, the new patterns that are emerging, look at what is emerging at the moment, that is what you're going to be building on. You cannot see these things if you keep busy with your tasks, if you try to kind of hold on to what you have. Try to kind of step back, and I think that's a leadership skill, and you don't have to be a CEO to be a leader. We are all leaders. The risk with rapid innovation. Yeah, so what's the risk of associated with rapid innovation? I'm not sure what you mean with rapid innovation, Nikki, but I think I always say, what's the risk of not doing innovation? I mean, the opposite is doing it, not doing that. The opposite is saying, all right, we're going to keep doing what we're doing, and the world around us is changing. Mickey. So last question, and I'm going to hand it over. Market need. Mickey is asking, market needing answers and us rushing to deliver solutions, which may have impact we're not sure of. So I'm not really sure about the context, but markets always want answers. I don't know. I don't know. It depends on your business. But what I would say is, right now, don't be rushed into anything. Of course, you need to kind of do the things that are necessary. If you have employees, like I have, if you have a business, you have a family, you have to take care of it. Yeah, of course, that's a very logical human response. We have to take care of that, and you have to do things for it. But do also be aware that this is we are right now in a creative intervention. This is the time to step back, look at emerging patterns, and design the future. And this is what we expect from what we now traditionally call our leadership in politics, in business. But I say we need a new kind of leadership, and it has nothing to do with hierarchy, with people calling themselves the boss. It has to do with you being that leader, because we need to start movements, and you are the one able to start those movements. We are all. And so don't think that you can just sit there and wait for other people to solve your problems or the problems. Step up and start moving.